Hi everybody. Okay, how are you? I have had, welcome to my channel, and this video is going to be about a junk journal that is your very first junk journal. Maybe. There are other reasons for it, and we'll get to that in a moment. But if you're one of those people, and I've had so many people request something for a very basic tutorial, this is the journal that you can make if you are facing that writer's block of a blank piece of paper that you don't know what the first word should be, or the artist who has the white canvas and they don't know where to make the first mark. This is your first mark. I've created quite a few of these little journals. They're super simple, and there are a couple, some ways you can mix it up a little bit, but I make them because I do art abandonment. So I make up some of these and I leave them for people to find. And I also used it for my 100 subscriber giveaway. I also use these as quick journals that I can make in just 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on how much I embellish them. And I can tuck them in my purse, and I use about one a month. And that's what I use to take my notes on, or whatever. Or I could. I actually use a traveler's notebook style that serves the same purpose. But this would be great for making up a quick little journal, tuck it in your pocket, and that's where you put your grocery list, you put your notes while you're out, it's that kind of thing. So it's small, it's simple, and it is great for your first journal. If you're just in a creative slump and you're like, I want to create something, anything, but I want to be able to do it today. I can start to finish this today. So that's what we're going to do. Now, this is actually going to be a short series because I don't want to have 3 hours on one video, or 2 hours, or whatever it's going to take us to do this. So it'll be a short series, but this is going to be the first one, and we will actually have the actual book finished today. And then we'll embellish it and everything at another, in another future video. Okay, so the items that you are going to need for this project, you're going to need 2 designer cardstocks, and at least one of them needs to be double-sided. Like this one has 2 sides, right? Most double-sided cardstock, I'll get some over here. The 2 sides are different from each other, right? They're coordinating, but they're different. So you need one. It doesn't have to be double-sided, but it's just going to make your life easier. If you don't have double-sided cardstock, then just take 2 single-sided cardstocks and put them together back to back, so you have a double-sided piece of cardstock. So it's just going to make your life easier later on. And it's just so much easier to start off with a double-sided on this particular project. Okay, you also need 3 coordinating scrapbook papers. I started this video a few minutes ago, and I forgot to put it on airplane mode, and a friend of mine called, and it stopped the video. So I've already sliced this. You're just going to pretend this is still a 12 by 12 piece of paper, and I have 3 12 by 12 pieces of paper here. Ignore the line. You do not see the cut. Okay. So you need 3 coordinating pieces of scrapbook paper, give or take. There's no exact science here. We're just guesstimating throughout this whole deal. And then you need some papers you need 3 or 4 papers from this side, and you need 3 or 4 papers from this section. So the first section, so 3 or 4 from here. Copy paper, coffee dyed paper, tea dyed paper, stuff like that. Kool-Aid dyed paper, avocado dyed paper, whatever kind of paper. But just plain paper. Ledger paper, book page, notebook paper, just plain old notebook paper. Tracing paper, graph paper. All of these are just sort of your plain papers, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be 8.5 by 11, but really I think all of these come in the standard 8.5 by 11 size. That's what I'm saying. Just, just plain papers, plain, either white, plain lined, plain graphed, plain thin, plain whatever, but plain paper. This side I'm going to consider our specialty papers. And some ideas on this would be, and you need 3 or 4 of these as well, map, music, an envelope, a page out of a magazine, index card, a calendar page, player piano paper, doily, notepad, receipts, checks while you were out, papers, whatever those are called, Scantrons. You should probably get a variety of these. Now, for this one today, I actually am not going to do many of these, of the unusual sized ones. I've got some just plain old things. So I suggest starting with at least the map, music, and envelope, or the index card. I love the index card, and there are reasons for that. So what I did, I gathered up some things, and I've already cut these as well. Let me show you that. 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? Cut in half. This paper, cut in half. This is super simple, and I'm not going to make you watch me do it. Okay, so I have some plain coffee dye paper. I have book page. This is an index card. It's an aged index card. I have couple of pieces of this old typewriter paper. Really like that a lot. Some of the like handwriting paper, graph paper, notebook, music, some more of that typewriter kind of paper, and an envelope. Okay. And those have been folded in half. So they were cut in half this way, and then they were folded in half this way. So they're right? That's super simple. And then an envelope. Other things you'll need. You need an awl or a pokey tool. I have these from We Are Memory Keepers, and I'm going to need some good some water. This is relatively sharp, so I can poke some holes in the paper. And then you're going to need some of these bull clips. 4 of them would be handy. You need some thread. I have this right here is waxed thread, and I have a couple of different varieties of it. You can also use lots of other kinds of thread. This is that's wax thread. This is embroidery floss, and I also have this. I love this thread. It's just plain cotton thread, right? I love this thread. It's one of my favorites to use. And if you're a beginner, you might want to run that through, rub it up against a candle, get a round candle, and just kind of rub it up against it. I don't have a candle handy. So let's say this is your candle, and this is your thread, right? You're gonna hold it like that and just run it through a few times like that. And it's gonna get enough of the sticky from the candle onto the thread to make it hold a little better as you're tying your signature in. It's just a little way to make it a little easier on the binding part. But once you've done that a few times, it's fine. But your first few times on that, the wax thread is just such a help. It keeps the thread from slipping. Okay, and then needles. Let me tell you what you don't need. So you need a needle with a relatively large eye. What you don't need is one with an eye that large. Can you see that? That's huge. You don't need that, because while this end is probably okay, this end, it's going to make a huge hole. What you do need is one, here's the one I'm going to use. You do need one with a relatively large a relatively large eye, so that you can get your wax thread through there easily, and you're not having to fuss and fight with that. Okay, the items you're going to need to embellish, I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, because that way you can gather up all the things that you might need that will be coordinating items. You can gather them up now. You'll need about 32 inches of lace or ribbon if you want to put lace a ribbon along the edge here, okay? You'll need some scraps of fabric, lace, cheesecloth, bits and bobs, and bling. Let me get one of my favorite things to use is cheesecloth. I use it all the time. All the time. I have a friend of mine who purchased some handmade paper for me that's like woven. It's a very loose weave. I love it. I don't know where she got it, but I love it. I cherish it, and I'm scared I'm going to run out of it. Tulle is also very nice to use. Lace like this, you can just cut it up into little snippets and use that. A fun thing to have that you don't have to have really any of this. Cheesecloth is super cheap though, and I literally use it all the time. Sari silk is fabulous. It's so much fun to work with. There you go, and some lace bits and bobs. I also have, where? It should be right here. I'm gonna grab some water. Oh, it's right in front of me. Y'all. So yeah, I keep this little thing handy. This has some of my little bling things in it. Some, you know, bits and bobs, some washi tape. I keep that kind of right over here. It's nice to have that. I don't know why I'm so dry. Another thing that's nice to have is a variety of punches. I personally like, I use a lot of circle punches. I have one that's smaller than this that I use quite a bit. I like the scalloped edge one. I like the flower ones. I have a few others. I have way too many probably, actually. But those would be nice to have. The circle punch and the decorative punches, you don't have to have those. They're just nice to have handy. The other thing you're probably going to want, just because everyone does, not everyone, there are a few people who don't like it, but you know, is you probably want to have some kind of distress ink. I purchased a small package of these. I think it came with 4, and I don't remember what all colors it came with, but it was 4 relatively neutral. Yeah, I don't see the other. I think it was something like this, and maybe one lighter, one too. I don't recall. But it's a good starter set. So I highly recommend getting these to start off with, because you can refill these, and they're handy to take with you. But it lets you sort of determine which colors suit you best. I tend to use the walnut stain a whole lot more than I use the vintage photo. And vintage photo is super popular. Most people love this one, and I do too for more subtle things. But I love rich, dark edges, so I end up using the walnut stain more often, so much so that I bought it in the big one. Okay, I think that's it. So this is what you're going to need. I'm going to give you a couple of options as we go through, but gather up your things. I'll leave this be for one moment. Let's make sure it's all in frame. It is. Okay, gather your things and come back. Alrighty, let's get started. First thing you're going to do is you're going to start with this double-sided cardstock. It is 12 by 12, and you want it to be 12 by 8.5. Right there, 12 by 8.5. So this one actually has a very specific orientation. So let's think this through. I want the 12 inches going this way and the 8.5 inches going this way. So I'm going to cut off the 3.5 from either the top or the bottom. And in this case, I think I'll just take it off the top, okay? Or I may take it off the bottom. I don't know. So I'm gonna make this 8.5 and leave the 12 inch. So now I have 8.5 by 12. I'm going to take the rest of this and set it off to the side. You do not see that cut right there. So 8.5 by 12. The next thing it says is fold from the bottom to make a 12 by 5.75. So we're going to make a 2 3/4 inch fold. Now, to do this, you can either use a scoring device, or, because you may not have it, I have one, but I want to make sure you feel like you can do this even if you don't. I'm going to measure that 2.75 inches. See, 2.75, 2.75. And now I'm just going to run this little, oh, that's a terrible sound. And give myself a little bit of help right there. And we're going to use the bone folder. You don't have to have one of those either. You can use scissors. There we go. We have a nice, pretty, folded up piece of cardstock. Aren't you proud? Okay. Now, you can do this a couple different ways, but this is what I'm going to show us today. We're going to fold the right side in 3 inches. So we're going to fold this in 3 inches. To do that, we have to measure and fold it. So I'm going to start like this again. I'll give it a little bit of help. Okay. Now, let me think. For this one, I think I just want to cut off that section. So you see this square right here? I'm going to cut that out. Okay, now I've got that square. I'm adding that to my scrap pile. You should probably have a little shoebox or something you can put all your scraps in. And now I have this piece left, right? We're going to fold that in so we can pretend we can't see that. Now I'm going to fold this whole thing in half, which will be should be 4.5 and 4.5. Let's double check our math here. That's 9 inches divided in half would be 4.5, and we're good. Get our handy dandy ruler back. Four and a half. That's not the right one. What do I do with it? There we go. Fold that in half. And do you see what we have? We have a journal. Oh, I should have made that just a little bit narrower because I wanted that to come over the top. So I'm just going to trim this just a hair. I forgot that I had done that, I wanted that to fold over. I normally make an extra little pocket back there, but this time I decided I wanted it to fold over like that. Oh, I think that's good. Maybe I'll trim that just a little bit more. Perfect. I may make this a little, see that looks like that needs to be trimmed just a little more. This is the nice thing about paper, is you can trim it any way you need to. Yes, much better. Okay. So, a couple of different options you could have done. You could have had, pretend this is folding up. You could have had where you cut this out and this folded this way. You could have this where it stayed here and then you had a pocket here and you could have cut this off, right? You could have just removed that and then you could have had a back flap where you had a pocket there. I wanted this to fold over this way because I want to do something kind of fun here. Haven't quite figured out what we're going to do, exactly how we're going to do it, but I want to do something there. Okay, we have our cover. We can decorate this later. We're not going to worry about decorating today, but you know, we have a start, right? We can ink this up later. Let's move on to the next item on the list. Oh, we still have to glue this. Let's glue this real quick. Okay, to make these pockets, we have to glue this side. We need to glue right down the middle and on this side. The glue that I am using, by the way, I can't recall the viewer's name, but she said that I was not close enough, which I moved the camera closer, and then I wasn't explaining enough. So please feel free to tell me whenever I need to do something different. So this is art glitter glue, and this is the tip that you can buy as an accessory to go with it. I love it. I love being able to get such a fine bead of glue. So I love that glue. It is not good for gluing large pieces of particularly thin paper because it will buckle because it's water-based. In those cases, the good old handy dandy Fabri-Tac or the Uhu glue stick. I understand there is also a Scotch glue stick that works as well. I have not tried that because I haven't gone through my Uhu stick. And I wish I had gotten the larger stick instead of this little one, but you know, live and learn. Okay, let's look at our list here. We folded up from the bottom, we folded the right side in and we trimmed it, right? We folded this in half, we glued the inside flat, and we saved our scraps and set them off to the side. The cover is done. Next step, you had standard pieces of paper. Remember we talked about that 8.5 by 11s that we just literally cut them in half and came up with these. So we cut all that in half. Minding our orientation, we are now going to cut our decorative paper, which by the magic of television, sorry about that, y'all. So 12 by 12, it says to, minding your orientation, cut your three designer papers, your just scrapbook paper, but it's actual paper weight, not cardstock weight, at 5.5 inches. So this right here is 5.5 inches. Okay. Take one of them and cut it to 8.5 and leave the other two at 12 by 5.5. So this is scrap for the moment. We're setting that off to the side. So we're going to pick one of these to cut take one of them and cut to 8.5 inches. So let's take this one, and I'm going to cut this to 8.5 by 5.5. Yeah. So I have an 8.5 by 5.5, and I have two 12 by 5.5. So these two that are, this one we're just going to fold in half. Okay. These we're actually going to tri-fold them. So, one fold needs to be 4.5 inches. It's just easier to do it like this, y'all. Four and a half inches. And now I'm going to fold this one in to be slightly less than 4.5, or it could be exactly 4.5 if you're good, but mine's going to be slightly less than 4.5. You can see. Okay, so that way it opens like that. And now this one I want to open up the opposite way. I want it to open up on this side. So I'm going to make 4.5 over here. It's easier just to do it like this. And now fold that into where it is less than 4.5. Or exactly 4.5. I'm not good at the exact, so I say less than just because it's better to be a little bit short than it is to be a little bit long in this case. And even though I've had the ruler out several times today, I'm typically not a ruler kind of person. I typically prefer to, I mean, some of these things you just have to get persnickety about, but most things I don't like to get persnickety about them. Okay, so I have one of these flaps opening this way and one of these flaps opening this way. Of course, I could turn it around and have both flaps open in that way, but that's, you know, whatever. Okay. Fold the rest of your papers in half, which we have already done, or I've already done. You should pause now and do yours. And then we're going to layer the paper so that we're alternating types of paper. I usually start off by separating out my papers in different, what I consider different types. So I've got the decorative paper. I've got a couple of specialty type papers, and then some plain cardstock paper. I mean, not cardstock, copy dyed. And these are patterned. This is kind of plain, patterned. Okay. All right, so I want to make sure I'm going back and forth and mixing this up a little bit. I am going to start with this one. And then I think, no. Actually, I think I'm going to start off with this one. Yes. And then the plain one, And maybe my, no, not my thin paper yet. I know. This is where all the decision making comes in. What do I want next? I want my book page. And now I want now my book page is going to wait, and I'm going to use this one. And I like to use my thinner paper that I can sort of see through next to one of my decorator, cards, scrapbook papers, because you can see through it, right? I like that. And because this one has a flap, there might be a little bit more wear and tear on the one that's right in here. So I want to make sure it's not my most delicate paper. I'll put this in here. How about my music paper, book page, graph and cardstock. There's this. Oh, wait, I don't want that. Yes, I do. Then I think I will have this one in the middle, but I'm going to turn it around. Because I want all right, let's see here. I'm going to swap this music paper for this one. Because that way the music paper will show through that thin paper. And you notice I didn't put this in yet. And what do I have that's sticking out? Oh, I must not have folded that properly. Okay, we'll come back. I can just trim that, no problem. Okay, so I have scrapbook paper, coffee dyed, handwriting, thin paper, scrapbook, lined, coffee dyed, book page, graph paper, index card. Whoops. Thin paper next to music paper and my scrapbook paper. And I have to refold this, or I have to trim this because I did not fold it properly the first time. There we go. What is sticking out now? Oh, that's that side sticking out. So I'm gonna have to bring that in a little further. The other thing is the pages on the inside tend to stick out a little more. In this little book, it's not going to matter. If it really bothers you, you can always come back now and trim that. I'm not going to, because I don't think, it doesn't bother me. I did not want it sticking out quite that far because that was quite a ways out, but that's okay. Just refolded it. Are we good? Okay, so that is ready. Now, this is not the right size. So what are we gonna do about that? I can fold it in half this way, and I could cut the sides, and then we would have a pocket right there. Or I could cut it right here, and see, it would be a top pocket, which I don't like, but you could. The other thing we could do is we could just make it a partial fold. You could actually remove that, make it a partial fold, and have a larger pocket, which is actually what I am going to do. And I'm going to put this next to my cardstock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this let me just go and fold that. Now, if your envelope is one of the long, thin ones, it would actually fold in half, and I believe it would fit in beautifully. Mine is going to fit like that, so they didn't fold that right. I'm just not doing so good today, y'all. Oh, the folding. There, that's good. But I want to cut this top flap off. And I am going to secure this here. Yep. And I still did. Look at that. Look at that. I still didn't fold it right. I am making really sure I fold it properly this time. And now that I've folded it so many times, I'm reconsidering how I'm going to, I'm actually going to reconsider how I'm going to do that. Okay, so I have it like this, and it's going to be on this side. And instead of attaching this to this card, like I might have if it was a little narrower, I think what I'm going to do, I'm thinking, I'm gonna make it a tuck on here. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so to make it a tuck, we're gonna go ahead and glue this in place at the top and glue it in place at the bottom. And I am centering it top to bottom. You do it however you want. If you want it down at the bottom, that's fine. So we already have our first tuck spot right there. See? Okay. Get this all back together. Now we have our signature. It's almost done. Almost done. I forgot to tell you one thing else that we needed. And I'm looking for mine. I cleaned my craft room yesterday. Do you know how that works? You clean your craft room and you lose everything in it. I don't know if yours works that way, but mine works that way. Well, oh, there it is. This is an old piece of foam. I don't even know where it came from. I have no idea. But you can also use an old book and put it on top of here and push into the book. But I'm going to use this foam because I'm just accustomed to it. And the reason why I like the foam is because it has a little bit of tooth to it, so it doesn't wiggle quite as much. All right, now I've got my signature here, and I just want to kind of look to make sure everything fits. Everything fits. I might want to adjust that at that end a little bit, but I can get to that a little later. So far, everything fits. Okay, now for the bull clips. You want to make sure that corner is pressed down so they all stack up nice and neatly, and then bull clip the top, say for the top. And then you're going to go to the, keeping those corners pressed together, we're going to come down here and we'll clip this. And now you can pretty easily get all the rest of them. You still have to make sure those corners are nicely pressed in there. Do you see that? They're all pressed in together. Now, adding this piece to it. I guess I should have. I'm going to go and bull clip that together too. Added the cover on top, and I can see that I did it wrong. I want it kind of centered top to bottom. And I had it centered on one of them and not on the other. Okay. Are we good so far? Yep. Okay. All of our corners are nice and snug. We've got the cover on too. It's all bull clipped together. We're centered top to bottom like this. And if you were doing more than one signature, you could not do it this way. But because we're only doing one signature, we get to kind of do it the lazy way. We're going to visually find our center and poke a hole. Come up about an inch. Can you see what I'm doing? Yep. Come up about an inch or whatever, a little bit, poke a hole. Come the same direction this way, or the same amount, poke a hole. Now you noticed I kept this mostly closed the whole time that I did that. That's because 99% of the time, if you do it that way, these holes will come out perfectly down that center piece right there. It's like magic. Magic. All right, let's look at our list here. We cut all that. The binding. Carefully place everything, folded areas tightly together with the bull clips. With a piece of heavy foam book, or other thick absorbent material, place the spine down, keeping the papers mostly closed, like I told you. Poke the hole in the center, and then 1 inch or so from either end. And now we're going to sew it together. Let's grab some waxed thread. I use about 2.5 lengths, give or take. And what did I do with that needle? Remember I had it? I believe I even said I didn't want to lose it. So I have to grab another one. This one. Well, I'm rolling away over there, aren't I? The other nice thing about the wax thread is you can flatten it down and it goes through pretty easily most of the time. And I am half blind. I'm not half blind, I'm just old, so it, you know, my eyes don't work close up like they used to. Left myself a little bit of a tail. Let me get this out of the way. In this particular case, I want to come from the outside in. It depends on where you want your threads to end up. I'm going to cover this. So I actually want to hide all of my threads. So I'm going to come up through the center. Okay. Minding my tail back here. See my tail? Leave that. And I'm going to actually just sort of tuck it under and hold on to it. Now you've come up to the center. You're going to go out at one end, come out the other end. And now I want you to mind where your thread is, and I want you to go back into that center hole, but don't pierce your thread. Oh, didn't do that so well. There we go. We came back up through the center without piercing that thread. And now I'm going to go back out the other hole, the other end. And that's it. We're going to tie this off. Now, before we tie it off, we're going to pay attention to that these are taut, and that one actually is not super taut. Okay. I'm going to turn this around. Take my needle off. And this is where that wax thread comes in really handy. Don't pull it too tight, but pull it tight enough that you feel the tension. Yep, that's perfect. See how it doesn't have a whole lot of give to it? That's what we want. And it's not slip sliding away because this is wax thread. I tie 3 times. There we go. Trim them. And now we can take all of this out. And I think I want to adjust, I think I decided I needed to adjust this just a little. And this is not folding so well. This paper is very old. This cardstock is very old, so it's not enjoying this. So I think I may have to cover that as well. Yeah, there we go. I could just cut that off. No, I'm going to cover this as well. Okay, so let's just do that real quick. Oh, what do I have here? Oh, I know what I want. Hold that thought. Sorry, silk comes in these huge batches. I mean, you can get them in smaller batches, but as much as I go through it, you know. So, the last thing we're going to do today has to be done the way it's going to be done, because whenever you put anything on the spine, on anything that's going to fold, you want to let it dry flat. And this section isn't as pink as this section. Let me see if I can find a piece that is a little more pink. Actually, I'm not sure if I think that's going to be okay. Or do I want to use the off-white? Maybe I want to use the off-white. Yes, I can. Sorry for banging you like that. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Yes. Okay. This, I'm going to make a little tiny mark about right there, and a little tiny mark about right there, and one about right there and right there. The reason is because I'm going to put some glue down here, and I just kind of want to give myself a guideline, a little guideline, so I know about where to put it. All right, and I'm going to do the same over here. I know about how wide that is now. I think I do. I bet I didn't get that wide enough. Oh well, that's good. and trim that. We can trim it up more neatly later. I just want to get now I could iron this. I don't want to. I want that kind of textural roughness. Now, here's the key. Whenever you're doing something to the spine like this, once you get it thoroughly attached, leave it. You do not want to bend it at this point. You want to just let it dry, flattened out like this. And there you go. We have now made a journal, and we actually made the journal itself in less than an hour. 50, I can't read this, or 52 minutes. There we go. In 52 minutes, we did that. We will decorate it next time. You've now finished created your first journal, at least the beginnings of it. And we will begin the embellishment in the next video. Phew, we did it in less than an hour. That was my goal. Yay. Oh, I hope you all have a great day, and I hope you're enjoying beautiful weather, and I hope you enjoy these little journals. I love them. I love these little journals. They're super easy, pretty quick to do, and it takes all the intimidation and stress out of it. All right, you have a great day. I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.